careful what you wish for, 'cause you just might get it. 'Cause you just might get it. 'Cause you what? Hey, be careful what you wish for, 'cause you just might get it. 'Cause you, hey, what just might get it. Bear, bear, bear. That was for you. What's up, YouTube? It's your girl Nadi by Nature, back with another movie review. Today we're going to be reviewing, recapping, breaking down all the good things, the great sensation that is Obsession, y'all. This has been the crave of the town since it came out in May, and it's just been taking a life of its own ever since. I had the pleasure of reacting to this movie over on the Golden Eye Network channel with my friend Arnias. So if y'all would like, go ahead and watch that reaction first, because I promise y'all it is a good time. I just got finished watching it for the first time and we did our big one with that one. So go ahead and watch that one first and then come back and then watch me, review, recap, breakdown, all the good things. But enough of the rambling, y'all. Let's go ahead and get right into this review. So the movie starts off at a diner. We see our main character, Bear. He's basically like practicing how he's going to profess his love to his crush, Nikki, and he's doing it on one of the waitresses that works at the diner. What we'll learn about this movie is that the choice of words that the characters use are very, very, very important to the overall storyline. The choice of words that Bear uses when he's practicing, like how he's gonna talk to Nikki, it doesn't give me that it's just an ordinary crush. This gives like he's a little infatuated with her. And I think that's what a lot of people sometimes get mixed up, like infatuation with like love. And to me, it just seems like Bear is kind of like, I'll say in over his head a little bit, because I just don't know like to what level you can feel this type of love for someone and y'all haven't even like dated or expressed any other type of feelings to each other. But I don't know. I don't want to get in too deep with it. So as he's practicing it, his friend Ian is off to the side, kind of giving him pointers, telling him what to do, what to say, because we'll learn that they're in a friendship group of 4 people, and Ian claims to know Nikki very well, and he knows like what she'll like for him to say, what she won't like for him to say. So Ian sits down in front of Bear, and Bear is letting him know like, hey, I think we're gonna go ahead and tell Nikki tonight at trivia night. And Ian's adamant like, hey, don't do it tonight. I don't want you to ruin the mood or whatever like that if it doesn't go right. So just hold off on doing it. So it seems like he's for Bear doing it, but just like not at this given moment. But Ian is very adamant that Bear shouldn't do it tonight. He has all the time in the world and to not rush it. But his last little pointer that he gives Ian is that, you need to playfully tease her, like call her Freaky Nikki. And we learn that Freaky Nikki is a nickname that people used to call her when they were younger to bully her. So in my mind, I'm like, red flag. Because in what world is it ever okay to call somebody a name that they were bullied for in any point in their life? So we cut to the next scene. Bear's at home. He's walking through the door and he sees his cat Sandy just like stretched out on the floor and she's stiff. And he, of course, goes to her and he finds like foam around her mouth and stuff like that. Y'all, Sandy's fucking dead. I've never had a pet before, y'all, but I would just imagine like that has to be one of the worst feelings in the world, to come home and see your pet just laid out like that. So he's trying to figure out like what the hell happened, and he sees like her food spread out all over the floor and a bunch of pills. We don't know if the pills were on the counter and the lid wasn't on. We don't know if it was in the cabinet and she happened to just get the cabinet open and the pills fell out. We don't know, but we just know like the pills ended up on the floor and she got to them and she overdosed for it. So rest in peace to Sandy. But I will say, a little foreshadowing, Sandy probably knew some crazy shit was about to happen within the next few days in that house. So she said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and exit stage left and I'm going to go ahead and self-delete because I will not be a part of this. I refuse. Peace out there. I'll fuck with you the long way, but hey, I'll see you on the other side. So Bear is cleaning up the mess and he puts Sandy's body in a garbage bag. Like I said, I never had a pet before, but I guess I honestly don't know like what you do with a dead pet. I'd imagine you just bury him in the backyard or something like that. But he puts it in a trash bag. So we cut to the next scene. Bear is sitting on the edge of his bed and he's of course like distraught, boohoo crying. I would be the same way if I lost me a pet, man. So he's going through it, and then, he's laying down, scrolling on his phone. He's scrolling through Nikki's Instagram pictures, and this seems like these are pictures he's already seen because all of the pictures that he scrolled through, he's already liked. So he's just, yeah, dead cat. Let me go ahead and scroll through Nikki's pictures. Yeah, it makes sense. So as he's doing that, Nikki calls him and they're chit chatting it up. She basically was just like, "Hey, like, are you coming to trivia night tonight?" And he's saying, "No, I got stuff to do." And she's very, adamant, like, "Hey, I would love for you to come. Just wanted to hang out, blah, 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 blah." And she goes ahead and tells him that she put her 2 weeks in at the job. So from there, she ends up persuading him to come to trivia night. So he will go. And then as they're talking a little bit more, she ends up saying on the phone that she just fucked around and dropped her crystal necklace down the drain. Then we cut to the next scene where Bear is at the Green Man store. And I guess this store is like a magic store where you can get like little magical little trinkets and stuff like that. So he's there. He's looking to get a crystal necklace for Nikki since she just dropped hers in the drain. So he's looking around at the crystal necklaces, trying to see which one he's going to get Nikki. But then he ends up getting distracted and he sees this setup on the wall and it has a few little gifts. One in particular was called the One Wish Rillo. So he seems very intrigued with it. He's reading it, trying to figure out what it is. And essentially, it's just a willow stick that you make a wish for and then you break it and then your wish is supposed to come true. And they're selling it for $6.99. So I guess any regular person would look at this thing and be like, okay, this probably isn't real. Like, y'all, I've gone into Walmart and I've seen that they sold like Ouija boards for like freaking $15. Am I gonna buy one? No, because I just don't mess with that stuff regardless. But I know probably a lot of people who would see that will probably be like, oh, well, that's not real, but it's just something fun to have. So he gets to the cash register, getting ready to buy the One Wish Willow, and he asks the cashier, like, is this real? And she's like, of course it's real. We're not scammers. So she does make a point to say, like, even though these things are real, most people just use these as collectibles. But the people who do use them, they usually come back complaining. And he's like, complaining about what? And she says, wanting to die, or some people are already dead. And like, she isn't laughing when she says it. And Bear's looking at her laughing. She's not laughing. I'm just like, bruh, that. And this is why I'm saying the common sense is very much lacking with Bear because me personally, if somebody tells me that, whether I think the shit is real or not, I'm probably not gonna buy it. But what does Bear do? He buys it. That'll be $7.59. Thank you. Goodbye. So now we're at trivia night. We're at this bar, and then we get introduced to the other two characters, which is Nikki and Sarah. So all four of them, they work at this music shop. So they're all co-workers. So they're at the table, chilling, having a good time. And Bear and Ian, they end up locking eyes, and they're basically communicating with their eyes. And Bear is telling him, like, I'm going to do it tonight. I'm going to tell Nikki how I feel tonight. And Ian's very much like, no, do not do that. And Nikki ends up catching them making the weird eye contact. So she's like, like, what are y'all doing? What are y'all talking about? And they're like, nothing, blah, 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 blah. So Bear and Nikki end up going up to the bar to get some drinks and they're just chit-chatting it up. And it very much seems that Bear is about to tell Nikki how he feels about her. But before he can get into the thick of it, Ian comes up and then Sarah comes up and Bear basically just, like, deads the conversation because he knows like he's not gonna be able to get it out. So they end up taking some shots. They do a toast, and Bear says, to Sandy. And then Ian and Nikki walk away, and Sarah's the only person that heard it. She was like, "Hey, what was that about Sandy?" And then Bear ends up telling Sarah like what happened to Sandy, that she died. So she's there, comforting him and letting him know everything's gonna be okay. So the night seems like it's dwindling down. The four of them are walking out of the bar and they're about to go home. But Ian is basically saying, he wants to go to karaoke night. And Nikki's like, no, I do not want to go. So from what we can see, Nikki usually goes home with Ian, Bear goes by himself, and Sarah goes by herself. But Nikki is just like, she does not want to go to karaoke night tonight. She's tired, blah, 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 blah. So Bear does offer to take her home. I will say there was a little part while they were conversing where Nikki asks if anyone has a $20 bill. She gets it from Sarah, and then she gives it to this homeless guy that was over behind them. And this is supposed to add to how the audience is supposed to view Nikki as a good person. So she seems like, she's pretty decent. She's a nice person. She's very loving. And as she's talking to the homeless person, we see Bear looking at her in admiration. I mean, like, eyes gazing. Like, man, that brother is down bad about this girl. So they're getting ready to leave, and Ian tells Bear, like, hey, get your girl home safe, like playing with him. And then Nikki hears that and she's like, ew, don't say it like that. So it's given like Nikki don't really like Bear like that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So everybody leaves. Nikki and Bear in the car driving, and they're just having conversation. She ends up saying, like she put in her 2 weeks because she just wants to do something different. She wants to feel love. She wants to write stories and stuff like that. So she just feels like she needs a new start. So they have a few different conversations. Sarah at some point at the bar told Nikki about Sandy dying, so she sends her condolences about that. She also makes a point to tell him like, hey, if you ever want to talk about it, like, you can always talk to me. You're a person that I can tell anything to. So this is where the audience splits on, what type of connection they're having, because from what I can see, it looks like a friendship connection, but a lot of other people in the audience seem to think that this is a romantic connection. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's all about perception. In this moment, it gives like this is just friends bonding. So they're still conversing, and Nikki ends up bringing up that, hey, Sarah, she's into you. Like, do you like her? But Bear basically just says, like, I just like her as a friend. And Nikki basically says, like, when I have a crush on a guy, no one will ever know. And this is why I'm going to keep nailing down on the choice of words that's used in this movie is very important, because Nikki is very adamant that no one will ever know if she has a crush on a guy. Like she won't, you won't notice it with what she's saying. You won't notice it by her actions. She'll be very good at hiding it. So they pull up to Nikki's house. Nikki's getting ready to go into the house, but Bear calls her back to the car, I think like 2 times. And you can tell that he's nervous. He's trying to tell her that he likes her, but he keeps like changing it to just some like random story or something like that. So the next time Nikki ends up walking to the house, Bear's dumb ass ends up saying, "Good night, freaky Nikki." Nikki instantly like freezes in her steps. She turns around and she's like, "Hey, don't call me that." And then she walks up to the car, looking at him like, "What the fuck is you on?" She ends up looking at Bear and she's kind of like, So she asks him the question like, "Hey, do you like me?" And I'm going to put a point in this to say, back when Ian told Bear at the diner that girls like it when you're playfully mean to them, that means that you have a crush on them or that means that you like them. Coming back to where Bear is right now, I think Nikki picked up on that. I think she realized like, oh, boys call me Freaky Nikki when they like me. So I think that's why she asked him like, hey, do you like me? And even in this moment, Bear, this is like the perfect opportunity for you to go ahead and tell this girl how you've been feeling for the last 7 years. She's literally asking you, how do you feel about her? But Bear, he doesn't say it. He says, I like you as a friend. And so Nikki's looking at him like, oh, okay. Now, to this point, I do think if Bear said that he liked Nikki, Nikki was going to tell him that she didn't see him that way. That's just my take on it. And further into the story, we'll get deeper into it. But in this point right here, I do think if Bear had said a different answer, yes, I like you, Nikki would have told him something that he probably would not have liked. But he says, I just see you as a friend. And she's like, okay, cool. So she ends up walking away, and Bear, looking like the dumbass that he is, he ends up pulling out the One Tree Willow that he bought from the store. He takes it out and he says, I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than any person in the world, and snaps it. So as soon as he snaps it, the camera pans out and we see Nikki, who already had went into the house. Now she's on the porch and she's just standing there. We'll see that this movie does a good job of like timing. She stands there for a few seconds and Barish is looking at her, and then she finally walks to the car. Clearly you can see like her facial expressions have changed a little bit. It's very stoic. And she's looking at him like, hey, did you have something for me? And he was like, Oh yeah, I forgot to say earlier, like Bear said that, I had a gift for you. But she's telling him like, "Hey, didn't you say you had something for me?" And Bear says, "I'll just bring it tomorrow." And from there, shit just gets a little more weird. And, she's trying to invite him inside. Do you want to come inside? I just lost my cat. And Bear's looking at her like, "You lost your cat?" And she's like, "Oh, no, wait. I'm sorry. You just lost your cat. I'm sorry." And at this point, Bear realizes that it's some really weird shit going on because what does he do? He looks in the fucking back at that one wish Willow and he looks back at Nikki. So this is one of the first instances where we see that Bear, he doesn't lack awareness. Like he's very aware, like, damn, I just did this and she's acting like this. But he's not good at critical thinking. That's what it is. He's not good at critical thinking. So from there, Nikki, she's very much at this point, it seems like she's in some type of trance. Like somebody's like hypnotizing her. So she keeps saying, like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And then she kind of like snaps out of it just that quickly. And to me, that would have creeped me the fuck out. I'd have been like, "Hey, do you want to just go in the house and I'll just call you tomorrow? Because right now you're scaring the fuck out of me." So at this point, y'all, she keeps saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Then she goes over to the driver's side. She tries to get Bear to get out of the car. And then she comes back to the passenger side and she gets in the car and she's just like, "Can I come to your house tonight?" And Bear's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like he's laughing, but it's like a nervous laugh. And he's just like, "Nikki, girl, are you okay?" And it gets to the point where Nikki, she ends up putting her head down on the dashboard and she says her dad's dying. And in this instant, I was like, no, he's not. I remember when I first watched this, I was like, "Bitch, I would be surprised if your daddy is even alive right now." But Bear, he's a softie. So he ends up, taking her to his house. So they get to his house. She's just walking around, smelling the air, admiring his smell, some weird shit. So she ends up in bed and she asks Bear if he'll be in the bed with her tonight or else she'll be in her head all night. So Bear gets in bed and Nikki's still apologizing about this motherfucking cat. It's just like, girl, we get it. Sandy's dead. But you don't have to keep apologizing for it. Like, you didn't kill her. She killed herself.
Don't say that.
So they end up, sitting in bed for a little minute. And then Nikki makes the first move and they start making out. And she ends up getting on top of him. But then in a split second, she snaps again. And she's just like, "Oh my God, what the fuck? What the fuck?" She backs up. She's freaking out. Bear's freaking out. And she's just like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry." Like, she keeps apologizing. Like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And then she says, like, I thought I saw something and, I had a panic attack. So from there, she starts crying and Bear is just like, what the fuck is going on? So the scene just ends with Bear sleeping on the floor and Nikki sleeping in bed. Rightfully so, because Nikki was doing a lot. Like, she'd be lucky if I even slept in the same room. I would be like, "Bitch, I might lock you in here and I'll just sleep in the living room on the couch." So he ends up looking up, does the One Wish Willow really work? And he finds a website which basically is Reddit. And the answers on it is kind of 50-50. Some people are saying like, no, it's not real. These are just supposed to be collectibles anyways. And then the other half is saying like, nah, this shit works. And there was even one person on there saying like, "Hey, my mom, she was so ugly. And then we did the One Wish Willow and she's like gorgeous." And I'm just like, what kind of shit is that? Do you know how ugly you have to be for somebody to put that? It's not funny, but like, you have one wish. You get one wish in your lifetime and you wish. Oh my gosh, y'all, that tickled the hell out of me. So, since Bear sees that there's enough responses that lean towards it not being real, he has it in his head that it's not real. So he ends up laughing it off and then he just goes back to sleep. So as he's going back to go back to sleep, he turns around and sees Nikki sitting up in bed and she's like, "Where did you go? Oh, can you get back in bed with me?" And blah, 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 blah. And he does. I wouldn't, but he does. So we cut to the next morning. They're getting ready for work. Bear walks into the kitchen and sees that Nikki made breakfast. She made a little bit of toast, 2 scrambled eggs, grits. He walks a little more into the kitchen, and y'all, guess what the fuck Nikki did? The camera pans down, and it's fucking Sandy with flies flying all around her. She got a little shrine made for her, and Bear's looking like, what the fuck? And Nikki's like, oh, it was supposed to be a memorial. And I'm just like, bitch, was this your cat or was it mine? Because you're doing way too much about a cat that wasn't yours. And also, to get on Bear, you should have been buried that cat. I know she just died last night, but you should have gotten her shit in order before you did anything else that night. And it's like, again, to Bear's point, like, you don't realize that this type of shit right here can lead to something more dangerous, which it does. But it's like, you acknowledge that something's wrong, but you don't do anything about it. It's just like, who in their right mind would see somebody take your dead pet and make a memorial out of it and think it's okay, and then just continue on like nothing happened? It's wild. It's very wild. Anyway, cut to the next scene. They are at the store. Bear, Nikki, Sarah, and Ian. And Sarah's dad is the owner of the store too. So they go into the store. Ian sees that Nikki and Bear walking together. So Ian pulls Bear to the side and he's like, hey, like, what happened? Like, did y'all have sex? Did y'all like hook up? What happened? And as Bear's talking to him, you can clearly see Nikki in the background. You don't see her face, but you see her body enough to know that she's staring directly at him. So as Ian is trying to figure out like what happened and, why they came in together, Bear tells Ian, like, she's going through something, her dad has cancer. And Ian's like, really? I didn't think she liked her dad. I didn't think she talked to him in years. And Bear's just like, yeah, that's what she told me. And, he also tells Ian, like, hey, I didn't tell her how I felt about her, but she kissed me. And Ian is looking perplexed, like, something isn't right here. She kissed you on her own, and you didn't tell her nothing about your feelings that you have for her. Very interesting. Nikki is still looking at Bear. So as they're talking as well, like, Bear is telling Ian, like, she was acting a little weird and stuff like that. And Ian was like, maybe it was Molly, because I guess at some point Nikki was doing Molly. So as they're continuing that conversation, bitch, Nikki is still looking at Bear the entire time. And it's like, Bear, like, it was so many signs. It was so many signs. It was so many signs, bruh. So Ian does tell Bear, like, hey, like, maybe I should talk to her and, like, figure out what's going on with her. So now the shift is over. Everyone's going home. All four of them are walking out back. And I guess Bear assumed that Nikki was going to ride home with him. But because of how she was acting the night before, he told Nikki, like, hey, I can't take you home tonight. And Nikki was like, oh, I know, I'm just getting my stuff out your car. Ian's going to take me home, which is the person that usually takes her home. So now Bear's at home and he's looking up like what the side effects to Molly could possibly be, because he wants to figure out like why Nikki was acting the way she was the night before. So as he's looking that up, he's on the phone with Ian too. And Ian said that he talked to Nikki on his ride home with her. And he says that she's fine. We really don't know like the specifics of what they talked about. And y'all, as Bear's on the fucking phone with Ian, Nikki was in the fucking window this whole time. I kid y'all not. It was like 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds of her just standing in the window looking at Bear before she moves. This movie is really good on hiding in plain sight because, bitch, I did not notice that Nikki was there. The second she moved, I was like, what the fuck was that? I'm like, y'all. This movie is so trippy. So she knocks on the door. Bear hangs up with Ian. He answers it. And, she's basically telling him like, hey, Ian told me that, you were freaked out by me last night. And, I just wanted to tell you that I was on Molly and I wasn't in my right state of mind last night. So I'm sorry. I just really like this scene because you can barely see Nikki's face. It's very faint. If you look hard enough, you can kind of see her face. And she also makes it a point to tell Bear like, hey, you didn't take advantage of me. And Bear's like, yeah, I didn't take advantage of you. So from there, the big conversation happens. I don't know why Nikki can't just come in the house and have this conversation, but she's still on the porch. So Nikki tells Bear that she knows that he likes her. And he responds by saying, do you like me? And it's like, just tell her the truth. Tell her how you feel. And granted, I'm not rooting for Bear, y'all, but I'm just saying in this very moment, if the girl that you like is telling you that she knows that you like her, why don't you just confirm it and then just see what she says? Like, why do you have to wait for her to say it first? Like, this man is so frustrating. So frustrating. This movie brings out all the feels, and frustration for me was one of them. So he says, like, do you like me? And she was like, yeah, I like you, and I've liked you for a little minute, ever since Christmas. I don't know how far back Christmas was, but it's been a minute that she's liked him. And she's like, do you like me? And he finally says, yes, I like you. So then we do this whole montage of them dating. We don't know how much time has gone by, but they seem to be having a good time. But at work specifically, their boss, which is Sarah's dad, Sarah and Ian, are all seeing them hang out, and they're just kind of having these confused looks on their face, like, this is kind of weird. Like, how did they get together? So the montage ends, and now they're on a date at a restaurant, and everything seems to be going fine. And Bear asks Nikki, how's her dad doing? And her entire face changes. She was happy, and then it kind of went to a little upset, and she's like, I'd rather not talk about that. Bear's like, okay. Ian's blowing his phone up, but he's not answering. So from there, they're just having like little casual conversations. And then Ian calls again. So Bear's like, hey, Ian's been blowing me up, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer the phone. So he steps away, he answers the phone, and Ian basically is telling him, like, hey, I did a little bit of research on Nikki's dad, and the hospital that Nikki claims that he's in, they have no record of that man. They didn't know what I was talking about. And he did a little bit more research, and he found that her dad does not have cancer, that he's healthy as a horse, and he's been to work every single day. And I'm just like, that's some type of research. But he's basically confirming that Nikki was lying about her dad. So he said, I don't know what that was to lie about. He also tells Bear that he had a conversation with Sarah, and Sarah told him that her and Nikki had a conversation, basically saying that Nikki did not like Bear and that she sees him as a little brother. Friend zone, we should say. So that was all the confirmation I needed that Nikki didn't like him. But Ian's basically saying, I don't know if Sarah's saying that because she's jealous, but even if you take that out of the equation, this is weird. And as Ian is saying all of this, Nikki comes out of the booth, and she's looking like kind of suspicious, kind of trying to figure out like what Bear is doing on the phone. And then she goes and sits back down, but she kind of realizes that something is going on that conversation on the phone. So as the conversation is going, Ian says it's almost like she snapped into another person. And as soon as he says that, we have a flashback from Bear's perspective of that goddamn willow tree and of Nikki as soon as that willow tree got snapped. So very hard to argue against the fact that Bear did not know. If you are aware that that willow tree had something to do with the way that she's acting and you do nothing about it, it's like you're content with it. And it's frustrating. Again, I'm going to keep saying frustrating. It's like your lack of critical thinking skills just led you down this dark path that it didn't need to be. Like, I just feel like the common person would have been looked into this a lot further, but it was Bear's delusion and his denial that kept him from trying to figure out a resolution to this. Because in his mind, as long as I have the girl of my dreams, I'm okay with a little bit of her lying about her dad. I'm okay with her possibly saying that, I'm her little brother. I'm okay with her having these little like snap moments where she snaps into another person. I'm fine with all of that. It's Y'all, let's move on because I'm going to go on a rant. So he gets back to the table, clearly shook with all of this new information that he found out about Nikki. And it seems like he was about to ask her about her dad, but he ends up chickening out and says, never mind. And so Nikki says, I have a gift for you. So she gives him this gift box. And bitch, if y'all would have told me that was Sandy's tail, if y'all would have told me that was Sandy's foot, if y'all would have told me that was Sandy's ear, if y'all would have told me that was Sandy's, any body part of Sandy's, I would have believed you. I really thought that she y'all, as much as she's been talking about fucking Sandy the cat, I would have believed that she would have put one of that cat's body parts in that gift box. But thank God it's not. It's just a tiger's eye. And she claims that it was her mom's and then her mom gave it to her. We'll go with that story. I don't believe it, but hey, we'll just go with it. It's just a tiger's eye. I don't Here, take the tiger's eye, Bear. So she says that this thing is supposed to give you confidence, which is funny because I've been saying throughout this movie so far that Bear lacks confidence. So it's very funny that she's able to see it. Everyone else is able to see stuff about Bear except Bear. So from there, she says, Bear, I love you so much. And then because Bear has this goddamn wish in the back of his head, he's like, Do you love me more than anyone in the world? And she's like, yes. And it's like, you're aware. You're aware. Y'all, he's aware. He he's he's not oblivious. Listen, I give him a lot of slack. He lacks common sense. He lacks critical thinking skills. But in this moment, he's aware. He's very aware. So then he proceeds to ask her, does your dad really have cancer? So once he asks that, Mama pulls out her best Georgette from Get Out performance, and she's saying no repeatedly. She stands up, she's screaming like, hey, I thought we were having a good date, and why does it matter? Blah, 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 blah. Bear ends up calming her down. She sits back down, and she's like, why does this matter? Which, why does you lying about your dad dying that you don't even have a relationship with? Why does it matter? I don't know. Maybe because what is that to lie about? But Bear's like, oh no, it's fine. Like, it doesn't matter. Let's just move on. Non-confrontational. Let's go ahead and add that to the list for Bear. So y'all, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this next scene. Y'all know what scene I'm talking about. It's the sex scene between Nikki and Bear once they leave their date that night. I knew immediately when that scene started that this was not right, that Nikki was being taken advantage of. We, the audience, acknowledge that that's not Nikki. That's not Nikki. That is not the real Nikki. That's her body, but that's not her in that body. There was no consent from the real Nikki for Bear to do what he was doing in that scene. And it very much showed in Nikki's face that she was not there. So I've watched this movie 3 times already, and it makes me uncomfortable each time I watch it because I said a few minutes ago that Bear is very much aware at this point of what's going on, and yet he still took it to the point where he's taking advantage of this girl. And at this point, Bear, he basically solidified himself as one of the worst characters I've seen in a movie. One of. I'm not saying he's the worst, but he's one of the worst. And it's unfortunate, man, because all of this could have been prevented. All of this could have been prevented. But yeah, y'all, that scene was just it was so unfortunate. It was so unfortunate, especially with the conversation that you just had at dinner. But let's move on, y'all. So now it's about 3:45 in the morning. Bear is asleep in bed, and he happens to wake up and he sees that Nikki is not there. And he looks up and looks in the corner and he sees Nikki standing there. Now, when I first seen it, it was kind of dark, so I couldn't even see anything in the corner, but I heard Nikki talking. So I'm like, where the fuck is she? But then the second time I watched it, I seen her silhouette. It's like, man, they do so good with the lighting. They do so good with the placement in this movie, because her standing in that goddamn corner freaked me the hell out. So Bear is kind of like looking at her like he's asking like, what are you doing? And she's like, just go back to sleep. And let me just preface y'all, when I say Nikki, I'm talking about fake Nikki. Let's just call her fake Nikki. When I talk about real Nikki, I'll call her real Nikki. So just know, at this point, this Nikki I'm talking about, fake Nikki. So if I talk bad about Nikki, I'm talking about fake Nikki. If that helps, just making sure like that everyone knows I'm not going against Nikki per se, but the actions of fake Nikki is like, okay, this shit is a little crazy. But she's standing in the corner and she does this fucking creepy walk forward, and it's like, oh my gosh. And it's funny because I saw someone say that the writer says that she's not a demon. And I'm like, respectfully, Curry Barker, if she's not a demon, then what is she? Because I only known for demons to maneuver like that. We'll get into it a little bit more, but I hate to tell a writer or director what's correct about their characters, but that's a demon. That is a demon. So yeah, she's basically like just standing in the corner. She's like, you're so cute when you sleep. I don't like my dreams when I sleep. And Bear's just sitting there looking like, what the fuck is going on? And then she starts yelling and crying like, why don't you love me? I feel like you don't love me as much as I do. So Bear's trying to reassure her or whatever. And she's just like, go back to sleep. And why Bear proceeds to lay down and go back to sleep, I do not know why. You can't sit here and be in the corner in the dark and stare at me and think I'm just gonna lay down and let you do that. If you don't get out that goddamn corner, I'm not going to sleep. We both just probably gonna stand up looking at each other then. I don't do people looking at me when I sleep. That is not normal. So Bear proceeds to go back to sleep, and then you hear Nikki yell again, like, why don't you love me? And then he gets up again, he looks in the corner, Nikki's not there anymore. So it pans from that corner to the door, and then that's when Nikki's crazy ass walks in with a bouquet of flowers in front of her face, and she walks over to the other side of the bed, and she's just standing there. Again, I say the timing on this is hilarious. Most of the stuff in here that shouldn't be funny is funny because of how long they have Nikki doing stuff for. So she's standing there with the flowers in front of her face for a little minute, and then she lowers them, and then she's like, "They're for Sandy, okay?" And then she just gets in bed and goes to sleep. So Bear, he tries to sneak out of the bed because at this point I'm sure he's like fucking trying to figure out what's going on. So as he's trying as he's trying I'm sorry y'all, it should not be funny. So as he's trying to get out the bed, Nikki, with her eyes still closed, yells, "Stay." Stay! And y'all, I got to put the clip in here because it doesn't know justice. The way she yelled and then the way he just knew to just stay was fucking hilarious. I don't think the writers were intentionally trying to be funny, but I got a cackle out of that because that was hilarious. Okay, y'all, so it's the next morning. Bear's getting ready for work, and he gets into the bathroom, looks in the mirror, and he sees that the front of his hair has been cut. And I'm like, shrine. Yeah, she's making a shrine of you. This is some shit Helga Pataki from Hell Yeah would do. She had a fucking shrine in her closet that her parents never found out about. Like, Bear, you need to be looking for the shrine. Anytime somebody cuts your hair, either they're making a voodoo doll of you or they're making a shrine. So Nikki's sitting on the couch. He walks up to her and he's like, "Hey, did you cut my hair?" And she's like, "Yeah." So nonchalantly, like cutting people's hair is normal. So he basically tells her, like, let's not do that again, okay? And she's like, okay. She hands him his lunchbox. She made him some lunch. And then he proceeds to talk about last night. And she's, apologizing and saying, I had a bad dream. And me, personally, me, when I have a bad dream, I just wake up, get on TikTok until I fall back asleep. I don't get in the corner and stare in the bed at my boyfriend and just watch him sleep. I don't do that, but I guess Nikki does. So he brushes it off as usual, and it's just like, hey, like, no more weird stuff, okay? Like, yeah, just because you tell her no more weird stuff, she's gonna do it. So she says, okay, that's fine. He gets up, he gets ready to walk out of the house, and the look on Bear's face is like stunned. We see that Nikki fucking duct taped the goddamn door as if she did not want him to leave. And I promise y'all, there was at least like 6 to 7 rolls of duct tape on that door. Probably 10. I'm saying 6 or 7 just to be generous, but she used about like 10 rolls of duct tape. And so Bear, who's trying not to like cause a scene, because I feel like he feels like that's going to start something with Nikki, he's just like, he's trying to act normal. He walks towards the door and he's trying to like open it. And Nikki's like, if you're having trouble with the door, maybe you should just stay home. He's like hell I will. I'm getting away from your crazy ass. So he's like, no, I got it. He finally gets it open. Nikki girl, a little advice. Next time you don't want your man to leave, maybe put a lot more duct tape on the outer part. You put too much attention into the middle of the door. Nah, you got to put it to where the opening of the door is. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying, like, just advice. Just advice. Just advice. So Bear leaves, closes the door, and Nikki is now standing in the living room and she's just smiling. And this is another one of those moments where timing is one of the best things about the movie because they stay on Nikki doing this creepy ass smile. And I counted, y'all. It was 15 seconds that they stayed on her face. And then the camera pans down And then you see her pissing herself. She's pissing all over grandmama's good antique carpet. I have no words. Like, this shit is just getting out of hand. So now Bear is at work at the music store and he's on his lunch break and he opens his lunchbox that Nikki gave him and he sees that there's two Polaroid pictures on top and one is of him. And it seems like Nikki took a picture of the security camera at the store and took it of Bear that was on the camera. So on that one, she titled it You. And then so she also had another picture of them two in bed with Bear asleep and her smiling. And then that one was titled Not Me. And it's like, he doesn't, it's like he notices weird stuff. He acknowledges the stuff, but he does nothing about it. I would have been like, what the fuck does this mean? But he brushes past it. He goes on about eating his sandwich. So Sarah ends up coming over to him and she's like, hey, are you going to Ian's party tonight? And Bear's like, oh, this is my first time hearing about it. Obviously, I wasn't invited. And then he also tells Sarah, like, hey, I heard what you told Ian about Nikki wanting to friend zone me. And then Sarah's basically like, you know, it's just weird that y'all got together so quickly and it just seems like she's taking advantage of you. And I just think it's interesting that Sarah is saying that she doesn't want Bear to get taken advantage of because all four of them are friends in the group, but it seems like they all have individual friendships as well. So I'd imagine like Nikki and Sarah are as close as Nikki and Bear. So it's just interesting to see that Sarah took the stance automatically of Nikki is taking advantage of Bear, but Ian makes it a point that it seems like Bear is taking advantage of Nikki. So it's interesting to see, you know, the stance between the two friends that are looking at the other two friends. But going along with the conversation, Sarah, she seems a little aggravated. She's like, you know, if Ian is gonna, you know, spill my tea, then I'm gonna spill some of his tea. And then she starts to say it, but then she gets interrupted by her dad, who's telling her she has another letter from a college that she applied to. She's trying to get into art school. So for this one, you know, she opens the letter, she doesn't get in. So she's feeling bummed. She goes back to Bear and, you know, they seem to have like some sort of connection. They seem very close, enough for them to sit like shoulder to shoulder. She placed her head on his shoulder, but Bear says like, you know, I see her as a friend, even though we know that Sarah likes Bear. So I think it was Sarah who said like, oh, your lunch smells weird. So she's up snatching the top of his Ziploc container and she reads the sticky note that's on it. And she's like, oh, my little food critic, what's the verdict on the cat? And then Bear's like, what? She was like, yeah, what's the verdict on the cat? And y'all, remember when I said that I thought that Nikki gave Bear a piece of Sandy at that restaurant and instead she gave him the tiger's eye? Compared to this shit that I'm about to say, I would have rather her did this. Do y'all know this girl cooked the cat and put it in his sandwich for him to eat? When Bear looked down at that fucking sandwich and saw, mind you, y'all, we don't know how much time has gone by. If I had to guess, it's been like a month. Let's just say a month. That cat has been out and probably not refrigerated, not literally probably just sitting somewhere rotten. She gave him rotten cat. Let's break it down a little bit further. Not only did she give him cat, she gave him his pet cat. Not only did she give him his pet cat, she gave him his pet cat that's been rotting for weeks. Yeah, that'll be the day that let's move on, y'all. I have no words. So Bear realizes that he's eating Sandy. Boy, she sure know how to make a sandwich.
Porky, you sure know how to make a sandwich.
Sorry, y'all, let's move on. I was trying to ease the tension. So he realizes that he's eating his cat and he throws up. And Sarah's like, what's going on? Like, oh my gosh. And he lies and says, oh, it's just an inside joke. I don't give a fuck about Bear at this point. So, hey, yeah, let it be an inside joke. I don't give a damn. It was black meat, y'all. It was black meat. Let's move on. So now the shift is over. Bear's getting ready to go home, but Ian comes out behind him and says, can he give him a ride home because his check engine light came on. So now they're in the car and they're just talking about Bear's relationship with Nikki, and Ian makes it a point to say like, yeah, it's just very weird that she went from having like this mental issue one day and then the next day y'all are a couple. It just seems weird, and it seems like you're taking advantage of her. And like I said, just it just back at work that same day, Sarah said the complete opposite, that it seems like Nikki was taking advantage of Bear. So, like I said, it's just interesting to see these two perspectives. So, and he's going on trying to talk some sense into Bear, and Bear's trying to say, oh, that night where she had the mental issue, she was on Molly, which damn well she went on Molly. And Bear says some shit that really pissed me off. He was like, she's the one that's obsessed with me, and I'm just like, oh God, I'm just at this point I'm disgusted. Like, this man is so yuck. Ugh. It's pissing me off, y'all. I'm sorry. Like, verbally talking about it is really like ramping up my frustration for this character. Man, he's terrible. So Ian ends up giving in and he tells Bear, like, okay, you can come, but Nikki got to stay her ass at home. Show me that you can stay a few hours away from her and y'all be fine. And even a better situation, let's just make it a guy's night. I'll tell Sarah she can't come no more. So they agree, and then Bear drops Ian off at home. Bear pulls up to his house, and he's sitting in the driveway, and he's practicing how he's going to tell Nikki about not cooking the cat. He was like, Nikki, you cannot do that. Nikki, you cannot cook the cat. It's like talking to a child at this point, like, hey, you cannot do this. You cannot do that. So as he's getting the stuff to get out the car, he hears the willow tree music, which I don't think I said it in the beginning, but when you first pull the willow tree out of the box, it makes this like, I'm not gonna say whimsical, but it makes like this I don't know what you call it, but it makes like some type of music when you first pull it out. So Bear hears that and he pulls it out of his bag and he's looking at it, and then he looks at the box and he sees that there's a customer service number on it. And side note, did anybody actually call this customer service number? Like, is it a working line where like Obsession producers have like somebody there to do like some funny stuff on it? Or was it like a disconnected line or something like that? I'm not calling it, so I'll just take y'all word of mouth on whatever y'all say it was. If y'all called it, put it down in the comments. So yeah, he calls the number, and yo, this conversation is so funny because this is not a regular customer service call where you get like a customer service like voice. This dude just answers, "What's up?" And I'm just like, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, yeah, Bear, you're fucked. This is not your typical product customer service line where they will actually help you. You're fucked. So Bear asks, is there any way that I can alter a wish? And the guy's like, you mean like to cancel? He was like, no, not cancel. He was very much adamant. Bear was adamant. No, do not cancel, which frustrated the fuck out of me because so the guy's like, yeah, we don't really do that. So because the guy told Bear that he can't cancel it, Bear's just wanting to ask some follow-up questions. He's like, is this real? Is her love real? And the guy's like, just because you wished it for her doesn't make it any less real. And I'm like, okay, we're not gonna get anywhere here. Like, I don't even know why they have the customer service number on here because it's clearly nothing these people can do. Like, once you break it, that's it. You can't, whatever. So I forget what exactly Bear asked, but the guy was like trying to help finish his sentence. He was like you want to do a cancer request? And Bear's like, yeah. He was like, yeah, we don't do those. And Bear was like, why the fuck would you ask me that then? He was like, I was just trying to figure out your intentions. And I'm like, I'm just like, this conversation was so funny because it's very clear that these people cannot help Bear. I forgot what Bear asked for this one too, but I think it was like how long does a wish last for or something like that. And the guy was like, it's going to last for as long as you live. So when you die, the wish will go away. So he also follows it up with saying like, you have a moral obligation to be there for her. Basically saying like, you're the one that put her in this situation. So the least you can do is be there for her. And from there, I think at this point it's going in one ear out the other with Bear. So he follows it up saying like, she freaks out a lot. Like, what is that about? And the guy was like, oh, do you want to talk to her? And then all we hear is what we can assume is Nikki screaming to the top of her lungs. And then Bear gets so freaked out that he hangs up. And I think everybody's on one accord that that was real Nikki's voice. And when I first like watched it, like when I reacted to it, I was like, okay, is this like some kind of soul swap? Like they took real Nikki's soul out of her body and they have it trapped somewhere. And then they put like a evil spirit inside of her body. I was like, this is just so trippy. And even to this point, when Bear realizes how real this shit is, because he's very aware that this girl is under a spell, he doesn't do anything. He just goes in the house and just acts like nothing happened. It's like, bruh, even to this point, I'm like, you should have been on went back to the Green Man store and talked to them people. You should have done everything you possibly could to try and see about helping this girl. But you don't because you're selfish. Now Bear goes inside the house and guess where Nikki is? Exactly where the fuck she was when Bear left. And I mean in the exact same spot. And y'all ever heard of blood, sweat, and tears? Well, she has piss, shit, and vomit all over her. Mama has not moved not once since Bear left. And Bear, who looks distraught, is like, what the hell happened? Like, you're all like filthy. And she's like, oh, I think I have a stomach bug. I must have ate something. I'm like, yeah, I know what the fuck you ate. You ate Sandy. You ate that rotten ass cat. That's why. I wouldn't be surprised if she ate the cat, y'all. I really wouldn't. Like, let's move on. And it's so weird because as soon as Bear got there, she broke out of that little trance that she was in where she was sitting there smiling. So it's like, damn, this shit is really fucking with this girl. So from there, she's like, oh, I'm gonna go take a shower. I'm all filthy and stuff like that. So she hops into the shower and Bear is standing outside of the shower and he's like, did you cook the cat? You can't cook the cat, Nikki. And Nikki's not really like responding to him. I don't think she's listening to him until he tells her, Ian's having a party tonight and I'm going. And baby, when I tell you that shower turned off so goddamn quick. So she responds by saying, like, I can go. And he was like, oh no, it's just a boys' night. And she was like, oh, that's weird because Sarah told me that she was going tonight. And he was like, oh, well, I mean, like you can come. And then from there, she like just starts screaming like, oh, if you really wanted me to go, you would have asked me to go, like boohoo crying. And then it basically just ends with him like taking her with him to the party. And Ian's getting in his ass at the house. He's like, I knew it. I knew you was going to invite her. I knew you couldn't like be without her even for a few hours. So now they're all sitting at the table. They're playing drunk Jenga and one of the guys pulls a piece and it says for him to switch and he ends up wanting to switch with Bear. So now Bear is sitting next to Sarah and the guy is sitting next to Nikki. And it's so funny because Nikki did not want Bear to get up. She was like, no, like I took a shower. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So like the people notice that, she seems a little clingy to him. So they're like, dang, what type of spell did you put on her? And they just start all laughing. But Nikki laughs a little bit too hard and too long. And everybody's like, okay. So now it's Nikki's turn to pull. Nikki pulls and y'all, somebody please tell me if I'm wrong, but we never got confirmation on what the hell the piece said. I even Googled it. I got some like theories on what it could have been, but nothing like that was confirmed from the writer. So she pulls it and she instantly stands up and just starts saying this weird ass, incestuous ass story of Hansel and Gretel. I mean, like very incestuous. And she's saying like all like the little childlike voices that you do when you tell stories to kids and stuff like that. And I'm just like, bruh, and fucking it's so bad to the point where Ian is looking over at Bear and Bear's just sitting there like he's so numb to it. And Ian's just looking at him like, bro, what the fuck is going on? The whole party has went silent, looking and listening to her tell this crazy ass story. And then she just finishes the story and then she sits down and she was like, new book I'm working on, now I don't have to drink. And I'm like, okay. So everybody's just sitting there looking at her, but don't want to sit in awkwardness for too long. So now it's someone else's turn to pull. Bear pulls and it says he must kiss the person to his left. And I just told y'all that fucking Sarah is to her left. So you know who gets up? And she has the nastiest frown I've ever seen on a person. I didn't even know a person could frown that goddamn big. So she's standing there for a little minute looking at him. And if anything, if I were Bear, I would have instantly got up because I already know what type of time my girl is on. I already know. Like, you should already know she's about to get fucking active. But no, Bear sits there. Sarah sitting there like, Sarah very much wanted to kiss Bear, and I think she really would have if Nikki hadn't got up. But Nikki gets up, she walks her ass around, and I'm thinking she's gonna go to Bear and be like, "Get your ass up, cause what the fuck you doing?" She gets up and she gets behind Sarah and she pulls Sarah's chair back with Sarah in it. Sarah lets her. That's the funny part. She walks next to Bear and then she puckers. She was like, I'm the only person you're going to be kissing tonight. So he kisses her. And from there, y'all, it just goes to shit. And after they kiss, she tells him, no one on this earth will ever comprehend what it's like to feel the love that I have with you. And everybody, mind you, everybody is still quiet in the party looking at her. Like, it got to the point where Ian asked Nikki, like, Nikki, are you okay? And then she's like, yeah, I was just joking. And then she starts laughing, weirdly laughing. And then she realizes that everybody is like not laughing with her. They're just all staring at her. And she was like, okay, I wasn't joking. Fine, deal with it. It's like, y'all, it's fucking crazy. And I skipped a part 2. She says some shit, but it very much seems like her voice is fucking changing, y'all. This does not sound like the Nikki that we got introduced to in the beginning of the movie.
And everyone in this room will die, never feeling the strength of connection I have felt with my Bear.
So she says that, and then just in a snap, she starts freaking out again. She's like, it's not me, it's not me. She's backing up away from Bear, and everybody's looking at her like, what the hell is going on? And then she grabs a beer bottle, smashes it up against the table a few times, then smashes it up against her head to where she's has a gash in her head and she's bleeding, and she just sitting there like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Bear's not reacting. He's just sitting there looking like, and Ian's like, Bear, get up, do something, do something. Bear's not doing shit. It's like, you shouldn't be used to this part at this point. It never got to the point where she was hitting herself. Like, the fact that you're just sitting there in a group of people is wild. And if I were the people in the party, I would have been like, oh, so this is normal. So she does this on a regular because you're not reacting how a regular person would react. And that's just another frustration for Bear. So from there, Bear tries to take her to the hospital. We don't hear what the conversation is between him and the nurse, but we can assume that the nurse sees that she's not willing to go. So they can't force her to be admitted if she doesn't want to. So the nurse is just like, hey, I'm wiping my hands, none of this. I can't do anything with it. If she doesn't want to come, she doesn't have to come and we can't force her. So they go back to Bear's house. Bear is completely over it. Nikki is just sitting at this damn table with her head all bloody with gashes from where she hit herself, not really understanding like the shit that just happened at that damn party. So he gets up from the table and he walks away and Nikki's like, hey, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to the bathroom. She was like, well, can I stand outside? And he's just like, why did you act like that tonight? And then she just responds like, I know Sarah likes you. And then from there, y'all, this conversation just gets so fucking cringy because he realizes that this is not Nikki. We've gotten plenty of confirmation that he knows, but this is where we really know that he knows for a fact this is not Nikki. He's like, this is not normal. He was like, do you like me? And she responds and says, I love you. And then, choice of words here, y'all. He goes from saying, do you like me to saying, does Nikki like me? Like, so from this point, he's going from, do you like me to, does Nikki like me? Is Nikki happy? And she's like, yes, I'm your freaky Nikki. And he was like, see, normal Nikki wouldn't say that. I'm just like, I just want to punch the fuck out of Bear, bruh. But he ends up saying like, this is all I ever wanted. And she's like, me too. He was like, no, it's not. And he just ends it with like, I think you should go home and we take some space. And then of course Nikki doesn't like that. She starts boohoo crying and she's like, I don't want to. And, it's just a lot more of that cringy ass conversation of like, she's like, I can be normal. He was like, well, just be normal then. Be Nikki, be Nikki. And it's like, bro, you know damn well that's not Nikki. And that will never be Nikki. Like, oh my lamb. How many times are we going to have to teach you this lesson, old man?
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Like he's saying like, like this is not real. This isn't real. And Nikki's like, I love you in every reality. It's like this is the only reality. This right here, and this isn't real. But he ends up just responding, like, I love you too. And then in the split second again, Nikki fucking walks in reverse back to the kitchen, and Bear is completely freaked out. And then he's like, Nikki, what the fuck? She was like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, don't be scared. And Bear's like, I'm going to go stay at Ian's. And Nikki said, oh, okay, you think I'm something to play with. You want to see a bitch go down a slide. Well, I'm going to show you how a bitch go down a slide. She goes into the kitchen. She gets a knife. She goes on to tell this story. A very poetic story, I will say. She has a good way of words with this story. But she's telling a story about her basically cutting herself and then bleeding to death. And essentially, it just seems like she's threatening to do that if Bear decides to leave the house. And it's so crazy because this is another scene where we only get the silhouette of Nikki. We don't really see her face. It's just very crazy because these are the moments where we see fake Nikki really like hone into this possession of the body. It's very crazy to see. So after she tells a story, she was like, or you can just stay. And of course, we know Bear dumbass does stay. So now they're in bed. Nikki's sleeping. Bear gets a text message from Sarah. Mind y'all, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Sarah is texting him like, hey, can we meet at the park? Because I have to tell you something. It's important. And Bear was like, no, bitch, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Can't you just text me? She was like, no, it's important. I really need to tell you. And he was like, no, I'm not coming. She was like, okay, well, if you don't come to me, I'm going to come to your house. And I'm like, Sarah, baby, respectfully, you don't know Baby D. You don't know Baby D. I'm pretty sure at this point, the audience knows what Nikki is about. We know what type of time Nikki is on. We know Nikki about the action. We haven't seen it yet, but we know that specifically with you, Sarah, the bitch that she thinks is trying to steal her man, we know she'll be about to action with you. So it'd be best that you just stay over there. If I were Bear, I would have just stayed at home and I would have told Sarah, like, hey, it'd be best if you don't come here tonight, especially with the shit that you just seen this girl do the night before. I think it'd be best if you stay the hell away and you just tell me tomorrow at work. I don't have time for this. You literally just seen what I went through. Bear dumbass, he gets up, and as he's walking out of the room, we hear Nikki talking. She calls out Bear's name. And at this point, this is real Nikki talking. And it's so like eerie because the body of Nikki is asleep. The eyes are closed, but we see her mouth moving. So I guess in random moments, real Nikki is able to kind of break through. But in this moment, I guess because fake Nikki is asleep, real Nikki is able to kind of like communicate. Well, she's telling Bear like, hey, do not wake her up. She tells him a few times like, hey, kill me, please. Kill me, please. And it's so fucking sad to hear because you can hear like just the despair and the want to not be here anymore in her voice. And Bear is like, what's so bad about being with me? And it's like, add something else to the list for Bear. You're fucking selfish. Because this in a moment where this girl is telling you that she does not want to be here anymore, in this moment where this girl is pleading with you, you still make it about yourself. You still make it about yourself. You still make it about yourself. Like, it's so baffling to me that Bear just... Y'all, I have no words for this character. I have no words. So he says, what's so bad about being with me? And Nikki has to tell him, like, I've never been with you, Bear. Please go ahead and do it. Please do it. Kill me. And even that saying should solidify it for Bear that this was never real. She's telling you, I've never been with you. You may have been with my body, but I never gave you permission to do that. And you know that. And the even more fucked up part about it is, y'all, even after Nikki gives you confirmation that you were taking advantage of her, you know what Bear does? He just walks away. Meanwhile, Nikki's still saying, kill me, kill me. Bear just walks away and goes to see Sarah. So Bear and Sarah link up at the park. They're in Sarah's car. So she asks, what's up with Nikki's dad? And Bear lies and says that he's dying, which he knows that's not the truth. And she says, like, that's just so weird because she doesn't fuck with him. So at this point, Sarah says, I really hope she's figuring out whatever she's going through because I don't like that she's taking advantage of you and she's using you to lean on. And I'm really starting to get a little aggravated with Sarah at this point because you keep saying that Nikki is taking advantage of Bear, but you see the decline in this girl's mental health. Of course, you don't see that she has a curse put on her, but you see there's a decline in her mental health to the point where the night before she's banging her head with a glass bottle to where she's gashing herself in the head. You see this stuff. So in what world do you see somebody that mentally unstable take advantage of someone? I'm not saying I don't like Sarah, but I'm saying, yeah, I don't know if I like Sarah. I don't want Sarah to die, but I don't really care for Sarah because that logic doesn't make sense to me. And she's not a good friend to Nikki. It seems like she's putting her bitterness over her crush and her friend getting together over her friend's safety. So she goes on to tell him that she got her letter from Luther, which is an art school that she's been wanting to get into. This is her last chance to get accepted into an art school. So she was like, I thought we could open it together. And as I was watching this, I was like, girl, I hope this wasn't the shit that you told me to leave my house for 3 o'clock in the morning, risking my life and yours at this point to open up a goddamn letter when we could have did this shit the next day. So they're still talking or whatever. And then she ends up telling him that Ian and Nikki have been hooking up on and off for the last 2 years. It was nothing romantic. It was always casual, but she just thought that he should know that. And this adds on to, my side eye for Sarah because at this point, girl, why are you telling him this? I feel like Sarah is bitter, and I can understand if you see that your friend is with your crush when you told your friend that you like him. I can see Sarah's point in being upset because anybody would be upset. Like, dang, you're my friend and I told you this was my crush and now you get with my crush. But I would take into consideration that my friend's mental is declining and I would have a conversation with her. But it doesn't ever seem like she had a conversation with her. Not about that, at least. So it's like, Sarah, the fact that you just, one, are saying that she's taking advantage of him, and two, now you telling her business, it's like, yeah, I don't know if I can rock with that. But hey, that's just me. I don't know if she was dirty macking to try and see if Bear was gonna try and leave Nikki and be with Sarah, because even at one point she was like, you need to be with someone a lot more calm. And I was sitting to the left of you during the game, and I was gonna get my kiss finally and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, all right, Sarah girl, let's move on because you're really losing me. So as she's sitting there talking about that damn kiss, y'all, guess who pulls up to the side of the fucking window? Nikki. And Nikki pulls up with a fucking brick. She breaks through the window. She has a brick that she puts on the steering wheel so the horn doesn't honk. And she proceeds to take Sarah's head and bash that shit. And I counted, y'all. It was a total of 23 times. She smashed Sarah's head up against that brick 23 times to the point where Sarah was unrecognizable. I mean, it was literal bare bone, bare skull bone. There was no flesh left on that. I'm surprised her eyes are still in her socket. It was, honestly speaking, I know I just told y'all that I didn't really care for Sarah, but I did not want Sarah to die, and definitely not in that way. The one thing I would get on the writers about is like, that was so unnecessary. I know it's supposed to drive the plot of like Nikki, the deaths that Nikki will go to be with her man, and y'all know what Bear did the entire times? Y'all know what Bear did while she was getting her head banged 23 times? He just sat there. Blood splattered all over his face, all on his sweater. Just sat there. like he always does. So Nikki, she goes over to the passenger side where Bear is, and she tells him, like, she's coddling him, hugging him, kissing him, like, baby, oh no, this is what you wanted. It's all your fault. Which I'm surprised Nikki said it, but hey, somebody had to be the voice of reason. So he's in utter shock. This was probably the most shocked he's been because I don't think he thought it would ever get to this point of somebody dying or somebody getting killed or somebody getting their head banged until they are unrecognizable. Let's put it that way. He didn't realize it was going to get to this point. So now he's in bare shock. But Nikki is telling him, like, hey, you need to help me get rid of this body. He was like, no. And she was like, don't make me say it again. So it cuts to them. I think they're at the music store. They have this bin in the back seat and they're carrying Sarah's body. And then you see him sitting down inside of the music store and he's just not there anymore. He's gone. So Nikki, she walks up behind him and she's like, hey, I'll handle the rest of this. How about you just go home? And in my mind, I'm like, what do you do at this point? I don't know, y'all. It's just crazy. Like I wouldn't even be able to go to work after this because I know that my boss's daughter, who's also my friend, is dead. And I seen it happen. And I'm part of the reason why it happened. I wouldn't be able to go to work after that. Bear leaves the music store. And because it got to the point of somebody getting killed, he's like, okay, I really have to figure out something now. Like, this has gone too far. And it's like, bitch, you should have been thought about this. You should have been trying to figure this out. You waited to somebody you love, somebody you liked, apparently. Well, not even like. You seen somebody that was your friend get killed. You waited way too long. So now it's the next morning. He goes to the Green Man store finally, and he's looking for the One Wish Willows. And they're not in the same spot where they were when he first went there when he bought it. He's telling the cashier, like, hey, where are the One Wish Willows? I can't find them. They were over here. And the cashier's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Bear's like, they were over here. They look like this box. Help me, please. And then the guy was like, dude, first of all, I'm gonna need you to calm down. It is way too early. And it was like, a second of all, I'm just fucking with you. They're right here. We moved them. And I'm just like, I don't like Bear at all. But in that moment, me and that cashier would have had to fight. I would have been like, bro, I don't went through so much shit. I went through so much shit in the past few days. I don't have time for your games. And then Bear says, well, how can you sell this shit to people? And then the guy's like, first of all, there are warnings all over this box. So if you didn't read them, that's on you. But we did our part and we put the motherfucking warnings on there. So don't come at me with that bullshit. I'm sorry. This movie is not supposed to be as funny as it is. So Bear was asking the guy, like, like, can I reverse it? And he was like, only if, like somebody can contradict it for you, like get somebody to say the opposite of what you said. And he was like, oh, well, can you do it? And he was like, I already used my wish. And there is a theory that I heard that people are saying online, saying that the guy used his wish on not having anxiety, on just being like cool, calm, and collective all the time. And I thought that was pretty funny because that guy really was calm. I took it as when I watched it that he is so unfazed by what Bear has going on because he's seen this shit before with the One Wish Willow. He's probably seen people come in, try and like get help, probably done had somebody get killed, probably wanted to die. He probably has seen everything under the sun when it comes to the One Wish Willow that he's just like, there's no need for me to freak out. There's nothing I can do for you. So he was like, yeah, best you can do is find someone to contradict the wish, or you just basically have to die, which Bear knew that already. So Bear ends up buying, I think he bought 2 or 3, I don't remember, but he bought a few of them. And then he goes into his car. He tries to break the curse himself. He says something along the lines of, I wish, this curse never happened. I don't remember exactly what he said, but something along those lines. And he tries to break it, but that shit does not break. That shit says it on the box specifically. One Wish Willow. One wish. One wish. Ray J. One wish. One wish. That's all you get. You knew that. I don't know why you tried to do it again. Listen, let's put on the checklist for Bear. Just not smart. He's just not smart. So now Bear's at Ian's house and Ian is asking Bear, like, what's going on? He was like, Sarah has been texting me nonstop, like some crazy wild text saying that I need to come to your house. And Bear instantly knows, like, Sarah's dead. So he knows that Nikki's the one texting Ian and that Nikki's probably going to try and kill Ian. Why she wants to kill Ian, I don't know. But she she wants to kill Ian. So Bear's like, don't go over there, stay here. I gotta go handle something. But then, he walks back in the house and he tells Ian everything that happened. He's like, I did this wish. I wish for her to be obsessed with me. I'm trying to break it. And Ian's not buying any of it. He's like, yeah, okay, so you did a wish. How come you can't just reverse it? And he's like, it doesn't work that way. You only get one wish per person. So Bear says, like, if you can break the wish, like, just reverse it, then, you can be with Nikki, which I don't think he should have said that because that kind of pissed Ian off a little bit because now Ian knows that Bear knows about him and Nikki. So Ian's like, oh, this is about, huh? Like, because I was with Nikki, blah, 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 blah. He gives it to Ian to break. He was like, bro, I just need for you to say these specific words. Don't go away from what I'm saying. Say exactly what I'm saying and then break it. Do y'all know this motherfucker Ian takes it, says, I wish for $1 million, and then breaks it. And guess what happens? Y'all, Bear dropped to his fucking knees. Bear. And Ian's looking like, it's so sad. Like, I'm laughing. And I laughed a lot when I first watched it because it was more so like an uncomfortable laugh. But now I'm laughing because of the audacity of all of this shit. So Bear gets back to his house and he's calling for Nikki. And it seems like he's going to try and get her to try and break the curse, which I don't think that was going to work. But he's calling out for her. He's like, hey, I need you to do something for me. And you see behind Bear that Nikki's standing there in the fucking corner. And she does this weird, like, robotic alien like move. And she walks out of the frame. And I'm just like, yo, this shit is not funny, but I can't help but laugh. Like, why is she walking like that? And the writer has the audacity to say that this is not a demon, and what the fuck is it? Because who moves like that? So as he's looking around for Nikki, guess what he sees? I told y'all she had a shrine somewhere. I told y'all. So then he walks into another room and he sees Sarah's dead ass body propped up in a chair. And she's butt booty ass naked. All she has is like a leather jacket on, but like all of her lady parts are just out. Nikki is doing her so dirty. So now Bear, he turns around and he sees fucking Nikki. She has the clothes that Sarah had on when she was killed. She Sharpie tattooed the same tattoos that Sarah had. She's smoking a cigarette. She don't smoke, but Sarah smokes. So she's basically trying to be like Sarah. And she even confirms it by saying, like, now you'll like me. And as she's smoking, she screams, wait, this is not just Nikki's voice, y'all. I'm telling y'all, this is some added demonic effects. And then again, she goes on her episode and she takes a bottle and she starts smashing that shit up against her head. So now as she's sitting here screaming, Ian's stupid ass is at the door and he's like, hey, it's really real. $1 billion, man. It's gonna be fun. I'm just sitting here like, okay, Ian, I need for you. So nobody has common sense in this movie. Ian, I need for you to turn this thing on. Turn it on. Use your thinking cap. If Bear was sitting here trying to tell you about this shit and tell you that it's real, and you know it's real now because you got the $1 billion that you asked for, why are you not in a more panic mode that something bad is happening with Bear? I already didn't care for Ian like that because, bruh, you know you was messing with Nikki. Why couldn't you have just told Bear, like, hey, me and her, we've been hooking up on and off. I got something going on with Nikki right now. So, I don't think that you should, tell her that you like her. I don't think that you should pursue that. I think you should have been honest about that shit. But Ian, you're not a good friend because you sat there at that diner table in the beginning and you were basically like coaching him on what to say to Nikki. All the while you knew that you were getting with Nikki on and off. It's weird. It's so weird. So Ian's at the door. Nikki done back Bear into the couch with a gun. And as soon as Ian comes through the door, she shoots the fuck out of Ian. And that's all she wrote with Ian. R.I.P. to him. So now she's screaming to the top of her lungs. She's threatening to off herself with the gun. And then she projectile vomits onto Bear. And like, this house is fucking, I know this house is fucking funky. I know Sarah's dead body, whatever is left of it, is in here somewhere. You got Sarah's dead body in here. Ian's dead body is in here. And that's about to start rotting. And now you got projectile vomit. You probably got the shit and piss that Nikki done did everywhere in the house because she don't know how to use the fucking bathroom. It's just a lot. Oh, and I wanted to explain where Nikki got that gun from. So when I watched it the second time, I realized they went to the music store after she killed Sarah because in the beginning of the movie, we learned that Sarah's dad keeps a gun in the store. So I guess Nikki knew, and she knew to go there to get the gun. So she's still standing over him, and he tells her that he loves her, basically trying to calm her down, trying to talk her off the ledge. And she does calm down. She lays next to him, and he's comforting her, and they're just sitting there. And the look on Bear's face definitely gives like, yeah, this at this point, there's nothing else I can do. This literally was never supposed to work. I think, granted, I'm pretty sure it hit him like a bunch of times throughout this movie, but unfortunately, it took for two of his friends to die for him to really, 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 really realize like this was never supposed to work. So he tells her like, "Hey, I'm about to go take a shower," because of course, he's covered in blood and vomit at this point. So he runs into the bathroom. I guess Nikki wanted to come in there with him, but he locks her out, and she's banging on the door, yelling like, "Fuck you, Bear!" Y'all, and this is another funny part. So as she's banging on the door, she's like, "Fuck you, Bear, let me in, let me in." And he's like, "Just a second." And she's like, "Okay, thank you."
Okay, thank you.
So now at this point, Bear, he does have the gun. At this point, he's just trying to figure out how he's going to self-delete himself. I think he's come to terms with like, okay, this really is the only way that the curse is going to be broken. There's nothing else I can do at this point. This was never going to work. So he has a gun. He's trying to figure out where he's going to shoot himself to self-delete himself. And in the end, he realizes that he can't go out that way. So he ends up taking the pills from the beginning that Sandy had overdosed on. They're oxycodone, which was his grandmother's pills at that. And this is definitely something hard to do. Even though he knows he has to do it, I imagine like for anybody, this is just like not something easy to do. So he ends up taking the full bottle of pills. And as he's doing that, we actually do hear Nikki in the background. And she's like, maybe we should take some space. Maybe I'll just like go and stay somewhere else for a little minute. And she's basically lying. She's just saying that to get him out of the bathroom. So as he has taken all of the pills, he's just sitting there kind of waiting. And then at the very last minute, he decides to stick his fingers down his throat to throw them up. So at that very last moment, he makes a decision like he doesn't want to self-delete. But before he can really stick his fingers down there, we hear the music from the one willow tree play, and then we hear a snapping. So we know somebody just made a wish. And like I said, he didn't stick his fingers all the way down yet. You see a change in Bear's demeanor. He goes from his fingers in his mouth, he takes them out, and he's just looking like, kind of looking around. And then he walks out the bathroom, and he has like this like instant gratification on his face when he comes out and he sees Nikki, and Nikki's looking at him and she's smiling. So basically what happened was Nikki made a wish for Bear to be obsessed with her as well. Now they're both just sitting there looking at each other. They come together, start hugging and kissing. And then the camera pans down and you see that she did indeed break the willow tree. And as we're looking at the willow tree, you see Bear and Nikki hugging, but then Bear does collapse. And then Nikki, who didn't know that he took the pills, she's screaming like, "Oh my God, what did you do? What did you do?" And then they end up on the couch where Bear, he eventually, passes away. Can't say I'm sad about that one, but, Nikki, clearly distraught, she takes the gun and she's about to self-delete herself because, of course, she's obsessed with him, so she can't live a life without him. So as she's about to do it, she snaps. So I imagine as soon as Bear took his last breath, that's when the curse was broken. So now we have real Nikki. And real Nikki is looking around like, what the entire hell is going on? And then the movie just basically ends with her screaming, like crying, wailing, and that's how the movie ends. So yeah, y'all, that is Obsession, y'all. This was a crazy freaking ride. This was a movie with so many twists and turns. I thought this was genuinely gonna be like your regular Obsession movie, like a regular Lifetime movie where someone's obsessed with someone else and they just do the most, but it's never to the point where they're doing all of the shit that Nikki did. But man, was I sadly mistaken. I'm so happy I went into this movie blind. I didn't watch any trailers. I didn't like read anything about it. I didn't know anything about this movie. So I'm happy that I went into it blindly because man, everything that happened was so unexpected. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right into these final thoughts, y'all, because I have so many of them. First off, I want to go ahead and talk about the performance of Nikki. And I think her name is Indy. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Go ahead and give her her fucking Oscar nomination right now. I know the nominations don't come out for a little while longer, but go ahead and give her hers right freaking now. Matter of fact, go ahead and give her the win right now. I need for y'all to give her all of her things. And I know when it comes to horror movies, you know, they don't really get a lot of recognition when it comes to these type of awards. But man, the way the lady who played Aunt Gladys in Weapons got an award, I need the same for Indy, because I'm not comparing the two. Both of them are great actresses, but Indy deserves an award. Go ahead and give my girl her things. Go ahead and give her her things. She deserves it. The way she was able to clock in and essentially play two different people. You have real Nikki and then fake Nikki. And then not even just fake Nikki, but you had to play fake Nikki, but how the craziness increased through the movie. Because fake Nikki, she had her ups and she had her downs. So the fact that Indy was able to clock in and tap into all these different personalities, mind blowing. A plus, 100%, tens all across the boards. I have no complaints with her performance. My goodness, it was so freaking entertaining to watch her, and I can't wait to see her get more roles. Can't wait to see her get more opportunities. Can't wait to see her win all of the things, because she deserves it. Shouts out to Indy. Another thing I wanted to say is I saw a lot of different, I'm not going to say influences, because I can't confirm like what all like influenced this movie, but some things that I will say like I got reminded of. Like I already mentioned it, like when Nikki was saying no, 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 no. I said that reminded me of Georgette's character in Get Out. I also think it reminded me of Get Out a little bit with like the mind switch, how, if I'm correct, it seems like there were two different personalities in Nikki. There was real Nikki and then there was fake Nikki living inside the body. So that's why it reminded me of Get Out, because you had not two personalities, but you had like two minds basically in one body. So I thought that was an interesting comparison. Another one, it was kind of simple, but when Nikki was peeing on the floor, I just instantly thought about The Exorcist when that little girl was like peeing on the floor. So that was another one. This was just something random, but I would be very curious to see Curry Baker like do a prequel to this, or even do like a series and show like the different scenarios of what happens to people that use the one willow tree. Like we had Bear use it on Nikki to be obsessed with him, but I would love to see someone do it where they win like win $1 billion and see like what type of trouble they get into. See someone break it and they wish for something and they regretted it. I just think that would be a cool series to watch, or just a prequel to how the One Wish Willow came about. I would be very interested to see something like that. All right, so I'm not going to try and run too long with this, but I definitely did want to hit on some points that I kind of mentioned during the review itself. First one I wanted to get on was the big topic that I think everybody has covered at this point. Was Bear the villain? Yes, he was. I know there are people that are trying to give Bear out because they're saying that he truly did not know that the One Wish Willow was real, which I will agree. I believe that he didn't know that the One Wish Willow was real. But it's the carelessness, it's the selfishness, it's the delusion that came after. It never should have gotten to the point to where he was taking advantage of her sexually. It never should have got to the point of someone getting killed. It never should have got to the point of Nikki bashing her head with a bottle. It never should have got to those points, because as soon as you realize that this thing was real, you could have went back to that store and asked, hey, how do I break this? You could have tried a lot of different things to try and at least show to the audience that you cared about helping Nikki, but it was always about you. So for that, you're not a victim. You're the villain. Nikki is the only victim in this. Nikki straight up asked that boy, hey, do you like me? That was your opening to say your feelings right then and there. The shit that you've been wanting to get off your chest for the last 7 years, and you couldn't even do that. No, I don't think he should have did the curse thing at all. Personally speaking, when you went into the Green Man store, you were there to get her a crystal necklace. How did you end up getting her a One Wish Willow and then saying that you bought it for her? I don't even it just, none of your decisions make sense. All things lead back to Bear. Bear, quiet as it's kept, Bear is not a good person. And I know there was, a setup for us to kind of like him in the beginning, but everything just kind of went out the window once we saw the decisions that he was making with this girl, when he knew very much like what he was doing. I can't give an out for Bear in any way, shape, or form. I can't give him an out in any capacity. Bear is wrong. Point blank, period. He's the villain. He's the one that did all the wrong. Nikki did nothing wrong. Nikki had no control. It's just unfortunate because we never got to hear what Nikki wanted. Now that girl's life is messed up. I will be one to believe that she's probably gonna go to jail. And there of course like theories out there that's like, okay, well, she can plead insanity. And I'm like, yeah, even if she gets off, like her life is still screwed because she has 2 bodies on her. She killed those 2 people. Well, her body killed those 2 people. So it's like her mental, I would imagine, is probably going to be messed up for a long time. She has a head, she has a fucking head injury because she kept hitting herself in the head so many times. Like, she ain't got no friends. She obviously doesn't have any family. Like, that girl is gonna be messed up for the rest of her life, and it's because of a poor decision that Bear made because he's so selfish. He lacks self-confidence. He's cowardly. It's all because of Bear's insecurities that Nikki is in the situation that she ended up in. And one of the last things that I wanted to note was that one of the things that they showed us about Nikki before the curse got put on her was that she gave money to the homeless and she was having a conversation with them. And I said it a little bit in the video in the beginning, but I think the writers wanted to show us that, this is a very nice, loving, caring girl. So the audience is supposed to perceive her as, this saint. Well, maybe not saint, but like, she's a nice person. She's a good person. So I would be one to believe that when Sarah said that it seems like Nikki was leading her on, I would believe that if Sarah is a good person, I don't think that she would lead Bear on. I don't think that she would be that mean in doing that. So in my opinion, I don't think that she ever liked Bear. And I think that when she asked Bear in the beginning, hey, do you like me? Once he called her Freaky Nikki, I think if he had told her, yes, I like you, either she would have told him like, hey, me and Ian are hooking up, or she would have just straight told him like, hey, I don't like you like that. I see you as a little brother. But because he said, I don't like you, she was like, okay, well, I don't even have to take it there. But I just wanted to confirm, right? That's my opinion. But I know everybody has like different opinions about like if Nikki liked him or not. But regardless, we never got to hear her side of the story. And I know I said that was my last point, but I just want to make it a big point that no one doesn't talk about. Sandy never got buried. I just want Sandy to rest in peace. And it kind of upsets me. I don't even like cats, but the fact that that cat has not been laid to rest and probably at this point never will, they're probably going to throw it away with whatever they can find of it. It's just like, damn. I said in the beginning, Sandy knew some shit was about to pop off, so she went ahead and got the hell up out of here while she could. I'm telling y'all, Sandy knew some shit. She didn't just take the pills. She didn't just take the pills by accident. She took them because she was like, oh, I gotta get up out of here. I'm sorry, y'all. It's not funny. R.I.P. to Sandy, man. R.I.P. to her. But yeah, y'all, that is my review. And shout out to Curry Baker, man, because it's so inspiring to see someone start on YouTube and then get to where he is now, to where this movie budget was like, I think they said it was sub $1 million. I don't remember the exact number, but it surpassed like what they were supposed to make. That is so inspiring. Anybody who's watching this, anybody who has a YouTube, man, keep going, keep pursuing your dreams, keep pushing, keep being consistent. Look where you can be. And the last thing that I want to say before I close this out, I heard that Curry is also going to be over the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that's going to come out. So I am fucking excited. I can't say that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my favorite franchise because it's not, but I do like maybe like 3 or 4 movies from the franchise. And I've been saying for the longest time, like, we need a reboot or we need something in the franchise, and we need it to hit because the last few movies that we've gotten from it have not hit like it's supposed to. So if they have Curry on it, I feel confident that he's going to do a great job in it, especially if he's going to take it back to his roots. I'm all for it. I can't wait to see it. Shout out to Curry again. So don't forget, y'all, put down in the comments all of your crazy theories, all of your opinions, all of your likes, your dislikes of this movie. Put everything that you can possibly think of in these comments because I think this movie is like a really big conversation piece. It's really good to get a lot of different perspectives on like Bear, on Nikki, on the perspectives on what's right, what's wrong, what should have happened, all of that good stuff, y'all. I would love to hear all of y'all's thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Definitely don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Hype up the video, do all that good stuff, y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching. And don't forget, spread love because the world could use a lot more of it. Thank y'all so much. Bye.